Hi, and welcome back to Ingrained Woodworks. Today, we're going to work on a project in Easel that may include some tiling. So I want to make some large letters for my sister's dance school that they can use to pose with. Now, these letters I've been asked to make 2 feet wide by 3 feet tall. And this is the perfect opportunity to practice some tiling. So we're going to attempt to tile here in Easel and make that carve. We'll see how it works. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we'll learn a lot, I'm sure. So in Easel, I already have the project created, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the project here. And I'm using 2 foot by 4 foot pieces of 1/2 inch ply, and this is just sanded ply, nothing special. And we're only going to be using 2 foot by 3 foot of it, but I left it at this full length, and this is in particular just a good representation of what you can do with the hobby pre-cut wood if you don't have the equipment to cut down sheets of plywood yourself. So we have our first workpiece here, and this is the J. So we'll be cutting a J, a D, or 2 Ds, and an S. So you can see here that it does have uh, multiple sections that extend beyond the standard workpiece size. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're on the right machine, and we are. I'm actually going to go in, I'm going to rename this machine so that we can make sure that you guys can see what it is. So we'll edit the machine. We're going to rename this as SilverBack. We'll save that. Now, one thing that we're going to do here for our spindle is we're going to change our spindle from automatic to manual. So when we go into machine, we're going to go to, I believe it's general settings here, and we're going to change the spindle control to manual. And that's because we switched out for the Makita router just before this particular project. So if we don't select manual here, then it will automatically try and turn on the spindle, activating these wires that were going to the spindle previously. And since I haven't made sure that everything's fully functioning exactly the way that I want it and gotten a power strip routed here, I do have the machine cable not routed in the cable chain. So I just want to make sure that nothing's going to happen to these cables while they're temporarily placed where they are. And once that's done, we can click out of this box and make sure that everything's set here. So we're going to set our size here, even though it is 24 inches by 48 inches long. I want to set this to the maximum length that I actually intend to cut. And this will make it to where it's not going to tell me an incorrect measurement, or when I center the letter on here, it's not going to give me the wrong dimensions or layout inside that, making it a little bit more difficult to center. So we're going to leave it as 24 by 36. Our first tile is going to be 18 inches. Our next tile is going to be 19 inches. And we made sure over here we did enable tiling, and our number of tiles is 2. Overlapping the tiles, this gives us a little bit of extra wiggle room where it'll basically recut into the previous portion so that it gives you some peace of mind knowing that you're cutting along the right path there. I'm going to leave that overlap on. It is a little bit more forgiving. Our bit that we're going to use a 1/4 inch spiral bit. So I've got that selected and I've got that installed in my router here. So we're good to go with that. Our cut settings. Now with this Makita router, we can go reasonably fast, and the machine will definitely handle it. This is a solid machine, so we're going to go 80. Now if you look at the automatic settings, it was setting it to 30 inches a minute. So we're going to go 80 inches a minute. Our plunge rate, we're actually going to step up to 20 inches per minute. Our depth per pass, we're cutting a 1/2 inch here, and I'm going to go half of the size of the bit that I'm using. So I'm going to go an 1/8 of an inch, so 0.125, and then we're fine with offset here. I am going to plunge cut this. Again, if I didn't notice this plunge feature show up until I actually purchased Pro, not just the free trial, but actually purchased it. So I'm not sure that you'll have it if you're on the free trial still. If not, once you purchase, you will have this option to start with a ramp in. I am happy with those settings. All right, so very simple here. We just typed a J. We filled the space with it as much as possible because we do want to take up as much of that sheet as possible. I don't want a lot of waste out of it. We are going to use tabs. I do want to have tabs on here. So right now we are using tabs, and I'm actually going to set this. I want this to be held a little bit more stout. So I'm gonna do 8 tabs. And you see it spaces them along our letter here fairly well. So we have a good spacing there. I'm comfortable with that. I think that's going to hold well. Our tabs are 1/4 inch long by 0.08 inches tall, and that should be plenty to hold this in place. Our cut, we're cutting completely through, so we are going 0.05 inches. And this bed has been surfaced, so we should be able to set it right to that 0.5 and have it cut all the way down through. So full 1/2 inch depth once we're done cutting. And I think that we're good to carve. So we're going to click carve. We're going to home the machine first. All right, our machine is homed. Now it's telling us to align our material. So we're going to align to the front of the machine at 0 inches. So we're going to grab our first sheet of material. Let me see if I can get it without pulling the mic out of the computer here. So I'm going to grab my first sheet of material. And I'm going to place it on the machine. Now I have the benefit of knowing that this J is going to be cut on this side of the machine. So I'm actually going to take my drill and run a small screw into this workpiece to hold it steady. And then I'll run a second once I'm comfortable with its position. Doing so is going to be the most positive hold that we can have on it, as well as not making it difficult for us to move it as we move down the workpiece. So I'm going to grab my drill and a screw. All right, so I've got a couple of screws here, just short drywall screws. I'm going to line my piece to the left edge of this spoil board, and we're aligning it to as close to 0 as possible. Really, it doesn't matter in this particular case because I am a little bit longer, and we're going to be moving down. So as long as we mark where that 0 point is, we'll be fine. I am going to, however, line up with the end of my spoil board just to make it easier to measure. So we'll go ahead and screw this workpiece down. All right, we're going to confirm our material alignment. We're going to confirm our thickness. And we left this as birch ply. It all cuts the same when it comes to true ply, so no real need to switch it. But if you want to be more particular, you absolutely could. Our material is secure. I'm going to throw a second screw in it just to make sure that we're not going to move. There's a second screw. We are locked down. And I may need to throw one in this bottom corner here to hold this flat. Now I know if I go all the way down to this corner that it will hold it and not be in the way of our cut. So I'm going to run one right there and run one all the way to the other side in the corner. All right, so we got our 4 screws in there holding everything flat to our spoil board. Material is secure. Now I have an upcut bit selected here. I am using a down cut bit to start with. I'm going to follow it along with the vacuum so I don't have to worry about the chips getting stuck down in there. But if you are running with no dust collection, make sure that you select to run the upcut bit to pull any chips away unless you're going to follow it with a vacuum. Now I'm also, once I start running this, I'm going to watch this screw really close just to make sure that we're not going to run into anything, because, and I'll show you here, this J does come out into the center a decent amount, and I guess we could measure over. So we know that it's going to be around 14 inches from that side, so we can take a tape measure and make sure that we're, yeah, see, we're less than 14, so we should be good to stay out of the way of that particular line there. But we want to make sure that we are, because if you cut into one of these screws, you're going to destroy your bit. Screws are incredibly hard, and they are absolutely the worst thing to run into with a carbide bit. I'm going to go back into my carve here, confirm my alignment, confirm my thickness, material secure, confirm my bit. Now we're going to jog the machine over to get our starting point. So I'm going to start by moving it, let's say, no, this is in inches, so we'll do 20 inches, and that'll let it run across nice and quick. Again, we're watching our cable until we decide what our cable management strategy is going to be for it. We are watching that to make sure that we're not going to run into anything. So we came over 20 inches. We're going to come forward on the y-axis 20 inches. Make sure I got plenty of this cable. I don't want it to have any issues being able to run this program. All right, now we're going to probe for our Z height here. We're going to attach our clip, place our probe underneath, and we'll click on probe here. We're going to confirm the position. Our clip is indeed attached, and we're going to touch it for contact. Make sure it knows it has contact. So our touch plate is in place, and start probing. Now it's going to run down and touch our touch plate. And contact. We are good. We'll remove our Z probe, and Z probe is put away. Now we're going to set our XY0. So we're going to start in this bottom corner here. That's where our 0, is on our design. So we're going to jog this over, and we'll do it 1 inch at a time. Come forward. So now we'll switch to 0.1, and we will jog this in. And we'll go to 0.01. We got to jog it back out just a tiny bit here. There we go. And an easy way to make sure that you're in the right place, we can jog down the spindle and make sure that this is where we want to be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch down, and I'm going to give her a small spin just so that I know where I'm at. You see here that made a mark right in the corner. That way that I can realign this bit if something happens that I lose my file there. We're going to set that 0. And then you'll see here, confirm that our spindle is on. Now you'll notice that it no longer says turn on the spindle, and that's because we do have this Makita router in here, and we changed it to manual spindle for our settings. So we're going to turn on our spindle, and we're going to turn this on. I think 2.5 is probably a pretty safe measurement there to start with for our speed. We'll see as it's feeding if we need to adjust this depending on the chip load that we're getting. We'll say the spindle's on. Now we're going to carve. Oh, so you'll see we had an issue there where our spindle is not touching down where it's supposed to be. So we're going to turn off the spindle. It's going to go back home, and we're going to re-zero our touch probe just to make sure. And I think it's because I moved that down after I had set our 0. So we're going to go back into carve, and we can click through a few of these options before we get started here. We're going to probe. We're going to jump in and over and set our Z height again. And I'm going to bring it down so it doesn't have as far to probe. Confirm the position. Our clip is attached. It's in place, and start probing. Awesome. Now we can put our Z probe away. Now we're going to jog in our machine to set our X and Y 0. And that looks good to me. So we'll set our X and Y 0. Turn on our spindle. Spindle is on. And we'll let her eat. All right, so you'll see right here, my bit caught this piece because it accidentally cut through the tab down here. Not really a big deal because I'm just going to sand that off to make it a smooth surface as these are getting painted. But keep that in mind. That's something that could definitely happen. All right, so now we've got the first part of our carve done. All right, so now to cut our second tile, we go into our material settings and we check tile 2. We're going to click carve. Now it's telling us to bring the bottom of our workpiece down 17 inches. So we're going to use the same 0 from before, and it knows that. So I'm going to send this out of my way. So I'm going to send the gantry back 20 inches just to make sure that it's out of my way. And I'm going to start taking my screws off. All right, now we're going to slide this down. Now I have this aligned perfectly with the corner here. And then along the side, it's still aligned with the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down. And I'm actually going to grab my air hose so I can blow this out. And I'll blow this up. Got a little on y'all. All right, so we're going to bring this forward. "17 inches. Let me grab my pencil and I'll mark out my 17 inches. 17 inches. And we're going to bring this down until that aligns. All right, now we're good. So I'm going to resecure this. Now I can reuse these two screw holes here because they're still in good places. Actually, I'm going to move this one in just in case something goes wrong. I don't want to accidentally have a screw come out of there with my bit. So now we're good. I got 3 screws in there. We have aligned our material. We know our thickness. It's fully secure. We're using a 1/4 inch bit. We're going to say manual. We're going to use the last position. Turn on our spindle. And carve away. I'm going to hold my hand over the stop here just in case it decides it's going to plunge someplace wild. No, we're pretty good. All right, and there it is. And as you saw, it really did not like the tabs that I selected for this, so not too big of a deal. Like I said, they're getting painted, so the tabs that were remaining, this little mark here and here, will get sanded out, as well as our small overlap. This just shows where perfect alignment has to be made if you're doing something like this. Now, if you were just doing a sign, would anybody notice this, a little bit over a 1/16 of an inch that we overlapped here? Probably not. So not a big deal there, but if you're doing some piece like this with a continuous edge, then you have to watch for that. But other than that, I'd say it was a success. I've got 4 more pieces to do.